Hey, it's Ryan with another special episode of the Bluffton Buzz. I'm here with Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, and thank you for having me.
So I know you're super busy. We're going to keep this quick, but I think you're going to be the most interesting person we talk to because, as we said just before the interview, we have a macro Nancy and we have local Nancy, and we
Mhm.
both decided we really need to talk local because that's like the most important thing, right? So for
Yeah.
anybody new to the area, let's do a brief introduction, like they've never seen you or heard of you before. Tell us
Mhm.
about Nancy Mace.
Well, I'm the Congresswoman representing South Carolina's first congressional district. High school dropout. I dropped out of high school at the age of 17, and I became a waitress at the Waffle House on College Park Roads. When you're coming into Charleston area, if you take the interstate, you'll get off at exit 203 in Latson. That's where I got my start. I became the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina, 25 years ago. I'm the first Republican woman elected to Congress from the state of South Carolina when I flipped the seat in November of 2020.
Wow. Okay. Um, how has your experience in Congress shaped your ability to represent our needs here in South Carolina? And also, the so many new people moved here. How do you see that growth working? Like, how do you represent new folks and the folks that were born and raised here at the same time?
Well, I represent everyone equally, regardless of their political affiliation. But I would go back and say that my experience actually started as a state lawmaker. I worked with most members of the Beaufort County delegation when I was in the state house. You have great state house representatives and state senators representing Beaufort, Bluffton, Hilton Head, the whole Beaufort County area, and I've worked with almost all of them when I was in the state legislature. And so this isn't a job that you can. This isn't the kind of work you can learn on the job. It takes someone that has experience. I have experience in business before I went into the state legislature. And I understood the power of being able to work across the aisle. So when I was a state lawmaker, I had a prison reform bill signed into law. Most recently, I worked with the legislature and the governor's office to have another bill signed into law this summer, even though it's not my jurisdiction now that I'm in at the federal level. But the child luring bill in South Carolina, I helped write it with State Representative Lee Hewitt. It took 5 years, but finally Lee got it signed into law this summer. And I was a big part of that particular legislation. But that experience, being able to work across the aisle, especially in a really divided Congress that you see today, all the craziness you see on TV, I have a front row seat to. It is a lot of BS. It's a lot of performative political art, so to speak. But having that background and the ability to work across both sides of the aisle has been really important in my tenure. I've had several bills that I've worked on with Democrats and Republicans alike, either as a sponsor or co-sponsor, that have been signed into law. I participate on 4 major committees in Congress, but then also I understand the machinations of how to get grant funding. Tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars for the district and grant funding for local projects, et cetera. Because the number one focus that I have for me always is going to be putting the low country first. And also that means putting my constituents' needs first. So no matter what I say in a hearing that might go viral online or on YouTube, what I really care about are the people, and that is those that reside here in the low country. The low country, our district is the 10th fastest growing congressional district in the nation. We have people from New York and New Jersey, California. Those are some of the top states that people are moving from, right into Bluffton, right into Beaufort County, and all over the low country. And so we have a lot of new faces. I treat everybody the same. And you can visit our website and contact the office. We have a grade A team. They're remarkable. They work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you call our office on Christmas, even though we're closed, you're likely to get somebody to call you back. I mean, that's how hard they work, and I'm really proud of our employees.
What do you think the top three issues are facing our area, your district right now?
Well, in particular, voters care about inflation and spending, which has been the fault of both parties. Republicans spend just as drunkenly and excessively as Democrats. I'm not going to point fingers one side or the other. Both are at fault for that. Immigration is a huge issue. We've had members of the MS-13 gang arrested in Beaufort County. Most recently, there was an illegal alien in Beaufort County that hit a car, and an infant, 4-month-old infant in Bluffton, actually died back in May. And so fentanyl is a huge crisis. Women's issues are a big issue, are a big concern of voters in the Low Country, in Beaufort County, Bluffton, et cetera. And I'm the most vocal member of Congress, or most vocal Republican, at least on women's issues. When the crazy ruling in Alabama came out that was against IVF, I was the first member of Congress in either party to file a resolution to protect and talk about the sentiment about protecting IVF. I was the first one in the country to do that. And so I've led the way on women's issues in particular. Locally, at the local level, obviously grant funding for floodwater and stormwater projects. We do a water resources development bill every 2 years. We've gotten huge wins for authorizations on those projects. We helped secure funding for actually over 20 million in funding for the Hilton Head Island Airport expansion project. And then, of course, we got over $1 million for Beaufort County and the Chamber to set up a cybersecurity hub. Those are just some of the more recent wins, but we help organizations and government entities at the state and local level in Beaufort County all the time. And we've secured a lot of money and resources and authorizations for those projects on the local level.
Okay, so you're doing local level stuff. You have your main job as a congresswoman, and then you're on these other committees. How do you split that time up? And I'm not saying like, oh, how do you do it? Like, wow, but like, how do you actually like
I actually, I
prioritize?
run my office like a business rather than a bureaucracy. We have
Yeah.
certain key performance metrics that we follow every week. So everyone should get a call back or an email back within 48 hours. We don't get it all the time, but if we're doing it 90% of the time, that's great. If you need a letter of support for a grant application, our requirement is that my office is to respond to that and give you that letter within 24 hours. We're about 99% of the time returning those letters in 24 hours. So we have certain metrics that we use like a business would use. And I use like enterprise software internally as well to manage the data, to manage the outputs and the production. Like if you aren't productive in our task management software, then you aren't a productive member of the team. And we measure everyone's output, everyone's performance. I fire a lot of people. If you can't keep up, you won't keep your job. That's how it works in my office. And so, one of my frustrations in government is it's really hard to fire people, not in my office. So that's why I said, like, if you've survived me for the last 1 to 4 years, you're pretty much a lifer on the team. You're going to be okay because I have really high standards. We work really hard. I work every day. I can't tell you the last time I had a day off. I think I took one federal holiday off in June of this year, and I worked in my pajamas in bed. I didn't get out of bed. I was in bed, but I worked the whole time. So there's no rest for the weary. I joke that I'll rest when I'm dead because it's a huge privilege. It's not a right, but it's a privilege and an honor to represent the Lowcountry, and I'm going to represent it with everything I got.
No, I appreciate that. Being a business owner of two businesses, what was your background in business? What were you doing?
Well, I started my own tech and marketing company in 2008. I also did some commercial real estate for about 6 years. You work for yourself by and large when you're in real estate. And so I come from a kind of an entrepreneur type background. I didn't have probably as many employees as you had or have today, but I know what it's like to start up a business. I know what it's like to fail in one. I know what it's like to be successful too.
I want to go back to something that you helped pass, the luring. Can you tell me more
Child
about that?
luring bill.
Yeah, can you tell me
Yeah,
more about it?
so up until this summer, if you kidnapped a kid, the minute you shut the car door or the minute you shut the door of the dwelling, the house or the building, that was kidnapping. But we didn't have anything against the law that the police could arrest you for from the moment that you get snatched up from the playground to the car door. There was like this gap. It's called inveigle. And inveigle is a very complicated word, and it wasn't prescribed in a way that law enforcement could understand and arrest someone on. And so we drafted a child luring bill that it is now a crime. We're one of the last states in the country that once you take the kid from the playground to the door, before you shut the door, it's child luring. So that the cops can arrest you and put you away and lock you up for luring a kid away somewhere that it's not quite kidnapping, but it's that moment up until the door is shut, basically.
Interesting. That's like intent, basically. You had the intent to do it. Is that the
Yeah,
idea?
and it happens a lot, and particularly in Charleston County. Most of the complaints about attempted child luring and kidnapping that I received over the last 5 years or so have been largely in Charleston County. It's a huge problem, and the parents up there, they're just so attuned to it. And I've been fielding those complaints for a long time. I promised I'd get it done, and I finally did. It took us 5 years to do it, but
Wow.
eventually it got done.
Was there a fight on it to make it like, were people against something like that, or was it just more
There
the
were people
legalese?
behind the scenes that were against it for whatever reason.
Mhm.
Most of those people would be attorney types.
Got it. Understood. Um,
Yeah.
working from the national level, what kind of, because I think a lot of people get things very confused. They will watch
Yeah.
news bites on Fox or
Mhm.
CNN, or they'll read one thing or the other, but they get this little bit of information. But how can you help folks understand, without going into this whole diatribe, like the trickle down of, you do this to help get the funds here? Because a lot of people last year, I learned, they thought the town took care of the roads, and here it's the county, right? Those kind of examples.
Some roads are county, some are state,
Yeah.
some are federal. I mean, it really just depends because there are sometimes like public-private partnerships. There are, times when it's only the local entities that are taking care of something. But from my perspective, I work with everybody. And even if it's not a federal issue, even if it's not my jurisdiction, I will weigh in. So for example, we're working on a letter of support for some funding. It's not a federal grant, it's a state grant. I'm weighing in on it. Typically, a member of Congress would not weigh in on an application like that, but it's what Beaufort County wants. It's what Beaufort County needs. And it's what I'm going to help Beaufort County get. So although it's not my jurisdiction, I have a very much an open door policy with all levels of government. If you need us, call us. We will be there for you, because I want to make sure that everyone knows I work for them. It's my name on the door, but it's the people who put me into office, and I work for you. It doesn't really matter, you know, the federal stuff. It can be interesting at times, like getting Kim Cheadle fired was one of my greatest career moments, something that I had done that had a real meaning, getting her fired, because you can never get anyone fired up there. But to do that, but it's the local stuff that matters. It's like, what did we do today for Beaufort County? Sorry, that's my dog. It's Liberty. And she loves freedom and the Constitution and bacon. If you can hear her. Libby, thank you. Thank you. She's a talker.
It's
So.
okay. I got infant running around. We got her on backyard duty right now, just in case.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
I totally get it. So, on the national level, what do you feel like South Carolina's biggest challenges are? Or do you feel like we're getting the best funding we
Oh God,
can?
we aren't getting enough infrastructure funding. Like
Yeah.
that quasi, not even bipartisan infrastructure bill. It was a waste of spending. Like, how many rural parts of our state don't have broadband, even though billions of dollars were spent on broadband? Infrastructure is our greatest expense and greatest need because of the massive growth. You're seeing it in Bluffton, you're seeing it in Beaufort County, you're seeing it everywhere in our district, 10th fastest growing congressional district in the nation. When they did the infrastructure bill, the state of South Carolina over a 5-year period only got one billion in new money. So the state overall got 6 billion over 5 years, but 5 of the 6 billion was already allotted. It was already going to happen anyway, with or without the bill. So we only got 1 billion in new money. I have like 5 bridges in the district. I get so many roads and bridges that are and intersections that are going to cost $1 billion. I could spend $6 billion tomorrow and still need more. And so the infrastructure bill was a farce. It really wasn't, it wasn't worth the paper it was printed on. There's only about 40 billion for the entire country on surface transportation or roads and bridges in the entire $1.2 trillion bill. And the thing that gets me, that I hate the most about Congress, are all the lies, the deceit and the dishonesty that that both sides will sometimes use to try to sell you a box of goods that aren't worth the paper they're printed on. And it's disgusting. That was an example, a huge example of massive waste. We need that money. We need those resources. And it was just wasted, completely wasted on BS. Who knows where it is now? It's not on broadband. It's not on our roads.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
And it just goes unaccounted for, and people can get away with that. I think it drives all of us nuts, anybody with a brain.
Yeah.
Something as an employer, workforce, how can we attract more everybody? Everybody moved here, but nobody's like working. I don't know. I don't get it. But like, how do we attract a stronger workforce? Everybody seems to have their business and everybody's self-employed with these great ideas, but has nobody to help them out. Like, how can we attract more folks here, the right folks?
Yeah, well, I think education has a lot to do with it. I'd like to see us implement 4-year-old pre-K. That would be good. I like all of our students reading and writing by 3rd grade, because we'd have more opportunity for local citizens to get really better jobs, high-paying jobs, if they were educated. If you can't read and write by third grade, and we have a lot of students that can't, you're not going to be ready for middle school. If you're not ready for middle school, you're not going to be ready for high school. There are a lot of jobs that this district offers that are vocational in nature where you don't need a 2 or 4 year degree. Think of all the people moving here and all the plumbers that are needed, all the electricians that are needed. And I don't know if anyone has hired a plumber or an electrician lately. These stickers shock. I mean, the sticker price is shocking. Every time I call a plumber, I'm out $500. I'm
I
like,
was going to
what
say
do you
$500
mean?
to change the toilet.
You were here for an hour. What do you
Yeah.
mean it's going to be $500? And so, of course, we have educated skills. We have a technology workforce, cybersecurity. Fintech is moving into the district. There are hedge fund companies that are popping up throughout. I mean, there are lots of opportunities for those who have college degrees and those that don't have anything. But we want to make sure that our workforce is educated to be able to go after those apprenticeships, those certifications, those jobs. The other thing that our district relies on, particularly in Beaufort County and Charleston County, are H-2B visas, worker visas, because when we don't have the workforce, we then import it in temporarily for 3, 6, or 9 months throughout the year. But there are arbitrary and artificial caps on some of those visas. We could use more of those workers when we don't have the capacity or don't have the population to address it. But you know, in order to meet the growth needs that we have, everything goes back to infrastructure. Everything's moving just so fast, and we're having a difficult time keeping up. I hate traffic just as much as you do. And I've sat in traffic in Beaufort County and in Bluffton. I mean, I see what it's like, and it's getting pretty awful. You go into Charleston County during rush hour starts at 2 p.m. in Charleston County now. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? It used to be you had to leave at 3 to beat the 4 o'clock. Now you leave at 2 to beat 3 o'clock. It, like for me, for my employees, I give them flexible work hours. Although we're all working like 12 hours a day, it doesn't really matter. You're coming in early, you're leaving late.
Right.
But for those that I can, I institute, you know, flexible work hours because everybody's working weekends, everybody's working nights to try to figure out the traffic situation.
Got it. South Carolina has a very diverse population.
Yep.
And how do we make sure that these groups, who usually the diverse groups, end up underrepresented? How do we make sure that they are included and they are heard? How do you go about doing that?
Well, I actually I have an open door policy. We don't discriminate based on race, political affiliation, gender, skin color, religion, any of those things. And in fact, I've done a lot of work in civil rights. For example, in Charleston County, we've had 14 people die in the Charleston County jail. That particular sheriff who runs the jail also has let out over 50 illegal aliens out into the low country. So I make very clear that I'm here for everybody. So when those deaths happened, I actually worked with some of our Black Charleston County councilmen to get a DOJ investigation into the Charleston County jail. I advocated for the family of Jamal Sutherland, who was killed in that jail on the first day that Sheriff Graziano was in office. I do a lot of civil rights work. I want to see all the resources we can getting into Mitchellville. I want to see statues of Robert Smalls and Harriet Tubman. I want to recognize the Black history and African American history that Beaufort County has. I support recognizing and celebrating that rich history because they're not teaching it in our schools. And we have great stories. I mean, most of the students don't know that one night in Beaufort County on the Combahee River, Harriet Tubman rescued over 700 slaves in one night. And so understanding our history, like when you come into my office in Beaufort, I have portraits of Black leaders that represent the area. And in fact, the first Black member of the U.S. House of Representatives, the first Black member of Congress, actually was a congressman from the first congressional district, Joseph Rainey. He was born in Georgetown, became a congressman after serving in the state legislature. Robert Smalls served in Congress as well. One of the last Black members of Congress in all of the country was a gentleman from Sumter, South Carolina, and served right before Reconstruction and the Jim Crow era and all of that. But like we have such great rich history, particularly in Beaufort County, that I want constituents of all walks of life, all political affiliations. When you talk to us, we understand, we recognize, and we celebrate all of that history. It's remarkable, and very few people know about it. And I think it could be a great tourism sector for us. I mean, in Beaufort County, just
how do we get it out there more? What do you think?
Yeah, no, we're doing everything that we can. We're involved in all sorts of projects and support all of that recognition, the heritage, everything down there. It's really remarkable. And there ought to be more movies made in Beaufort County regarding some of our Black heroes. from the 19th century. They're just some amazing, amazing people out there with huge successes. People that were inventors and that fought for freedom out of slavery. And, it's just, we have an amazing culture, and it's not celebrated enough, but we do our part and work with different groups throughout the Low Country and recognizing that history.
Cool. I'm going to start closing it out here. One thing, our tagline at Bluffton Builders is built with integrity. And at first I used it because I love double entendres and I'm like, built with integrity. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden I started living by it, like literally like thinking about it every day. It is a compass and a filter, a moral filter for me at this point. So I would like to ask you, Ms. Mace, how do you feel you are built with integrity?
Well, my faith in Christ as my father, my savior, and my friend, that has really grounded me. I'm someone who wants to operate in a world of honesty, integrity, and truth. That's why I voted to oust the speaker last year, because there was a lot of dishonesty and lies and that kind of thing. And I only want to work with people who are going to be honest and tell the truth. And that means people on both sides of the aisle. I hold everybody to the same standard. And I think it's really important when you are operating with integrity, whatever that standard is that you are putting out there, it has to be applied to all people, not just people that you like, not just people on the team or against the team. It has to be applied to your teammates. It has to be applied. That's how you keep everybody honest, is by holding everybody to the same standard, regardless of their politics. And I've done that. I've gotten in trouble for that. I've been primaried for that. People have run against me because I hold Republicans to the same standard that I hold Democrats. That's the way the world should be. And that's the world in which I operate. I'll never change. This is the right way to do things.
It sure is. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
I got one final question.
Mhm.
It's from a local girl, Krista, who actually she had a great question last year, and it's about the fentanyl issues and the drug issues.
Yeah.
We have it's still an epidemic, it's at an all-time high.
Mhm.
How can we push to get a detox in our community? We need so much better mental health and also detox health. And the closest places I'm learning from her, like 2 hours away. How do you help somebody with
Or you
help
have to
2
go
hours
out of
away?
state too. So
Yeah.
that would be more of a state level issue. And we're happy to weigh in on it, write letters of support, and work with the delegation in Beaufort County to get something. And I think that you'd probably find support within the Beaufort County delegation. But it's something I worked on as a state lawmaker. And it's sad to hear, but the detox and also having all the medicines, whether it's Narcan, everything available. Overdoses happen, fentanyl exposure on accident. It happens. People die or they get
Mhm.
very sick from it. In fact, 10 years ago, I didn't know what fentanyl was 10 years ago. Last year, I knew people that died from fentanyl overdoses. So it's a serious issue and something that we need to be compassionate about, and more of a state legislative issue, but we're happy. I worked on it when I was a state lawmaker and always happy to weigh on it now. And of course, at the federal level, I've worked on numerous pieces of legislation to help with this epidemic that we're having across the country as well.
Very cool. So if anybody needs your help, they can come in and talk to you or talk to your team about it.
Absolutely. We have an office in Beaufort as well. And it's got the best view of all the offices I have. It's the best view in the district. It's
Oh, that's a
beautiful.
good thing
Stop
to
by and
have.
see us.
It's all about that location.
Yep.
Anything you would like to say to the people that
Nope.
are watching this?
No, I think you're good. You hit everything, you hit the nail on the head, and I appreciate your time today.
Nancy, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right. Bye.